Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
USA Global TV and Radio proudly presents The Corner Bookstore, hosted by Red O'Loughlin. Step into a world where every story inspires. These pages come to life through the voices of authors from around the globe. Written by our global community of TV show hosts and best-selling authors, these works span genres, generations, and geographies, united by the power of storytelling. Discover your next favorite book and meet the minds behind the work. Thursdays, only on USA Global TV and Radio.
Howdy, y'all. Red O'Loughlin here. We're on the Corner Bookstore on the USA Global TV and Radio Network, and my guest today is Kay Sparling. She's a return visitor. We chatted a month or so back. Anyway, let me do a brief introduction of myself. I'm a writer. Actually, first off, I'm a researcher. I research the human body at the cellular level, chemically speaking. I look for cause and effect relationships. Treat a cause, fix a problem, treat symptoms, and you'll always be treating symptoms, and the cause could continue to get worse. However, that's what I write about. That's what I speak about. I focus on longevity and age-related diseases. Probably written over, I know I've written over 1,000 original content articles on LinkedIn, mostly on health and wellness, about 1,500 on my website. When I'm not doing that, I post 3 TV shows every Thursday morning, back to back to back. This is the first one. I have another one coming up immediately following this one called The Wise Ones, and then another one immediately after that one called Talking Heads. And my talk today on Talking Heads is on the vagus nerve and longevity. I think that's enough about me. Let's go ahead and get straight into my guest today, Kay Sparling. Kay, join me up here on stage, and I'll do my introduction with you here next to me. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too, Red.
We had a wonderful conversation a little while back about her book, Mission Thaw, new writer, new author, and she's taking an area that she is passionate about from her travels and other interest in life. And we're going to delve into a little bit about that today. But you are, I guess right now, retired international opera singer. Mm-hmm. How did you grow up and figure out that's what you wanted to be?
Well, what happened was when I was 7, I was discovered as a singer, and I was actually, I received the role of Gretel in Sound of Music, and I became a professional Broadway singer at 7 years old. That continued till I was way out of college, like 27, when I was approached by an opera coach that saw me on stage and offered me a free scholarship to go to graduate school to study opera. And so after my long journey with Broadway for that many years, I decided I wanted to change. So I entered opera and, went into the training, which took a long time. Then I had to do my apprenticeships, which is part of what this book's about, is during my apprenticeship. And then, went ahead and sang opera and sacred music, classical sacred music, right up until 2 years ago. Yeah, I retired at the age of 64.
Okay. My first degree was in chemistry, and I always admired, and I still do, music majors, because in that one, when I'm going down to my chemistry labs back in college, there was the little cubicles along the side of the one part of the building, and the music majors are in there. They're doing their whatever they're doing. I can imagine singers are the same way. There's just
Mhm.
a lot of practice, and
Absolutely.
critique and improvement, self-reflection. And I'm thinking to myself, I just go to the lab, I do this, and I'm gone. And, hopefully I learn from it. But in your case, or in the case of all those other people, I'm just amazed at the number of hours they had to put in to get that degree. It's just, it's one of those things that just always has stuck with me. So I've run into somebody who literally can write music. I had a brother-in-law, he's passed away now, but he used to write music, and he'd get an album or two a year done in his retirement. And when you're doing music or reading it, it's almost like a foreign language, because it is something different than, I can't read it. Yeah, I can see the bump, but that doesn't mean anything to me. I can't
Mhm.
translate that into something that other people would enjoy. So I really and truly admire people who can do that. So when did you decide that you wanted to be more than just an international opera singer?
It just, I decided it because of the circumstances that, came to me. You make a plan and you think you have it all wound up in life. And I talk to young people about this a lot. And then something presents itself, and you're on another whole other plane. I thought when I went over to do my apprenticeship, I was just going to have an opera career. Well, it turned out to be much more than that, because of the circumstances that were going on in Central Europe in the late 80s. And there were people basically that needed my help, and I felt like it would have been the wrong thing to do to turn my back on it. So,
Okay.
surprise.
Okay. So you're in the Cold War. I remember that very well. I was flying a lot of missions on Soviet submarines back then.
Oh my
And
goodness.
well, it was part of the job I had in the Navy at the time. It was just anti-submarine warfare. And I did
Mhm.
that for about 16 years. But in the Cold War, your book, Mission Thaw, and how is that doing now?
It recently has really taken off. My publicist talked me into doing an ebook $2.99 special on Amazon, and they put it out to many, 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 millions of emails. And I was able to get on a couple global online book clubs, and present, things like for a 24-hour period. And the reaction was very, very good from the public. So pretty happy about that.
Okay, your publicist is Mickey Mickelson, is that correct?
Yes, yes, and Amy Richardson. I can't say her name too well, but they work together. She does more of the Google and the online presence, and he does a lot of the bookings like today. So they work really good as a team.
Yeah, I've known Amy for a number of years. She's here in the Houston area. Actually lives in Texas A&M area, thinking Conroe, but I know it's not, College Station. Uh,
Okay, okay,
I've known her for quite a while. I've never met Mickey other than interviewing him on the air, but he's up in Canada. Creative Edge, I
yes.
think, is the name of his company.
Hmm.
But no, great people. Mickey's provided us a lot of people. I've used Amy myself for my own books. So very, very talented people, both of them. Okay,
Yes,
what did you
absolutely.
learn from the Cold War that says, I really got to write a book about it?
I learned, first of all, that it's not a subject that's really covered very much like in our history books as we're growing up and studying as students. And so I just found that even my peers knew very little about it because they were young people during the time. And I felt like there are so many parallels of what was going on in the end of the Cold War and what is going on now in the world. And so I thought maybe I could put a new fresh note on the Cold War. And I thought Caitlin Stewart's the perfect tool because she was the only woman spy working at that time. And so, I used her as sort of a fresh new look at espionage in the Cold War era. And at the same time, I'm trying to draw everybody into looking at the parallels.
Okay. I know you speak a number of different foreign languages. Why don't you tell our audience which ones you're fluent in?
Well, at one time, because, if you don't use them, you lose them. But at one time, I was fluent in English and German and Italian. And that means different dialects in those two languages, and Russian. And then I had quite a bit of fluency in Polish and some of the Slavic languages like Hungarian. Nowadays, it's down to Italian and German because that's the two that I still use a lot.
I've always found Hungarian to be an extremely difficult language to listen to and understand and to speak. I've
Yes.
done a lot of travel over there, and I can pick up a lot of the Slavic stuff pretty easily. That's Polish and Czech and stuff, because it's pretty, I wouldn't say easy, but it's consistent in what they do. But in the Hungarian, I just have to point, that's what I want. That's the English translation. Thank you very much.
I agree. And some of them are just very hard. And I would say of all those languages, of course, now I studied this more formally, you understand, for years, but I think German is the most complex grammar of all the Western languages. Absolutely. To finally tackle all that German grammar is something I was never able to do. It's just really complex.
I lived in Germany for a couple of years. I had a couple of years of college German, and I'm not anywhere near, I'm Teresa fluent. I can tell you, I need 2 beers, where's the bathroom, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, sure.
And that's kind of wherever I go, I want to learn at least the basics, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Yes, no.
Yeah.
You learn a whole lot more than if you're just totally dependent upon a translator. I just find it amazing, the cultures, what's there if you understand. And you're right about German. There's a lot of different stuff. And I took a couple of German classes over there, and they kept everything pretty much present tense.
Okay. Yeah.
Which isn't too bad because, in fact, I think it was the Navy SEALs. I think they have an intense course in about 18 hours where they learn 40 verbs and all the present tense and about 400 words they need for their particular, if they're going to train people how to do this or that, then they specialize in the word. So by the time they get on an airplane, get to where they're going, they have a rudimentary knowledge of being able to train somebody, or at least to be able to function in that area, whether it's Ukrainian or whatever other language it might happen to be. I tell myself, 40 verbs, 400 words, that's not too bad. I can learn that. But that's not necessarily saying I understand what they're telling me. It just means I can make my presence known for what I need. And that's a big difference. And then you're talking about dialects. My goodness. That's another realm entirely. It just, because if you're saying something in English and you have New York and you have Southern and you have all sorts of other stuff, it's not much, but it's enough that people, when you're trying to say this person's from that area, you expect them to speak from that area. And I'm expecting the same thing in opera. If the character is from that one, that's the dialect you want to have. Is that correct?
That's correct. And also just when you're in international opera, you're also asked to do a lot of speeches and public, appearances where you have to speak. Maybe you're going to be, what would happen to me is they would put a microphone in my face as soon as I walked off the stage. And, it's a German or Austrian channel, TV channel. So you are to vernacular, of course. And you try to, if you're, it's a whole different language if you're speaking in Hamburg or if you're speaking to an audience down in Munich. And so, like it's Danke, saying thank you in the north, Danke, it really does sound much different. And so that is why my coaches and agent thought I should learn this, the several dialects. And Austrian German is different than German. Yeah.
As is the Swiss language, which is
yes,
has bits and pieces, but you actually, I lived in the southern part of Germany, Stuttgart, and I could just walking up to somebody, if I'd say something that would be typically textbook stuff, they would kind of look at you. But if I spoke to them in the local dialect, totally different world, because now I'm communicating with them in a more familiar area, familiar part of the culture, I guess.
Yeah.
What was the best opera house that you really loved to sing in over in Europe?
Ooh, well, there are two, because one, I'm going to say La Scala in Milano, because of the incredible history that's there. And it's not that it's such a great acoustical chamber to sing in, but it's just all the famous singers that have sung there before, that literally the stage floor kind of sinks where singers particularly stand, for arias and that kind of thing. It's that old. And so and the fact that I love to sing Italian opera music, that just all kind of comes together there. But I would say in Europe, I would say the best opera house that I sing is the Vienna State Opera.
Okay. When we speak publicly, we tend to use body language and facial expressions and stuff. Is that the same thing when you're singing in Italian or you have to have not only the words, but the facial language, feeling what you're saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely. All those nonverbals that go on in your face and your body. And we learn to do gestures. In fact, we have to take ballet so that our gestures are fluid and our movement, if we have to move across the stage, is fluid. And that doesn't matter if you weigh 300 pounds or 100 pounds, you have to learn how to do that, because everything has to move with the music. But we must have lots of expression in our eyes. Shakespeare said the eyes are the window of the soul. So they do incredible makeup so that even the furthest audience member can see the expression in your eyes. And so that focus has to be there. And then your body has to, if you're angry, that your body has to show that. If you're crying, your body has to show that. And so do your gestures. So we act while we're singing. You can't just stand there and throw it out. You have to learn all those nonverbals that go with the dramatic content of the aria.
I think the same thing applies in public speaking, because when you're speaking, it's words, inflections. If the body isn't saying the same thing, it's a mixed message. And I've been Toastmasters forever and ever and ever, and I critique a lot of people. In fact, I go in, I try to do every single one that's there. But one of the things that's always left out, they got the body going and this and that, and the inflections and the pauses and everything but the face doesn't reflect the rest of the body. They just haven't incorporated, as a really good speaker, the voice, as you said, the eyes, that they really and truly tell the story. You're looking at the person, you can see the body language, you can see the hands, but when they're focused on you, you can really just see right into that person who is speaking. And as you say, it's a major part, if not the most important part of the opera singing.
Yeah, whether I'm speaking or singing, my coaches will tell me the eyes have to pop, is what we say in the business. And which also brings me to a spy thing. One thing that spies are learned to figure out if someone is actually telling the truth or not, is they watch all that body language, but they're really looking right in the eyes. And that's hard to do if you're telling a whole big line of, baloney. And, it usually will show in the eyes that you're thinking and, you're making it up, and it just shows. And so they've learned to read all those things, but the eyes is what they mostly read with the body language.
Why don't we wander down that path here in a few seconds? We're going to take a commercial break. It'll be about a minute or so, a minute and a half. And we come back and we'll talk a little bit about the spy business and that part of the world. And we'll get into, let's say, how is today not much different than a decade, 2 decades, a generation ago? Because there's a lot of things going on that we never learned the lessons of history from. And I think that's one of the topics that you wanted to talk about today. So let's have a commercial break and we'll get back into that.
Okay.
In a world craving connection, one platform dared to dream bigger. USA Global TV and Radio, a beacon for global voices, authentic storytelling, and elevated listening. Led by visionary Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, the journey from a spark to a global force is now captured in one inspiring book. Honored with YouTube's Silver Creator Award for surpassing 100,000 subscribers. Discover the evolution, the challenges, the triumphs, and the unstoppable spirit that created a global movement. Executive producer Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang. Creative director Paul Garcia. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication, or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited. Now an Amazon #1 new release in paperback and ebook. Broadcasting Brilliance, the evolution of USA Global TV and Radio, is inspiring readers around the world. Join the movement that's redefining global media one story at a time.
Brad O'Loughlin here. We're back on the Corner Bookstore on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. My guest today is Kay Sparling, recently retired international opera singer and new book author, Mission Thaw, Cold War spy novel. We were talking just before the break about being able to see truth or fiction, lying in the spy trade by people's eyes. By concentrating, if you're making up a story as you're going along, you don't have that background to act the role that was there. So when you're writing your books, how did you develop a spy mentality in order to be able to put this thing together?
Mostly living with a spy for 12 years. And being involved on the outside of a large spy ring over in Europe, and sometimes, asked to call upon for favors. So it's actually a living experience. And what I did not know, of course, I could go to them and I would interview them. So that is where I got my information.
Well, that's neat. That's something a lot of people never have, or even know. They read, 20 dozen books and they kind of put it all together. But living the life, or living adjacent to the life and
Yes.
access to the life, that's interesting.
Yeah, it gives you the perspective, and it also inspired me to write this story for the people that were involved, to honor them, because it isn't like Mission Impossible, although I love those films, and it's not like James Bond, although I love those films. I wanted to try to show what it really is like for a seasoned spy to go into a mission like this, and a brand new, a rookie spy. And I think I was able to do that. So I'm looking for my audience to be on the back of this new spy as she goes through the mission, so they really get a realistic idea of, yes, there's a lot of dangers, and and thrilling excitement, but we don't strap ourselves onto a bomb and blow ourselves out of a jet. That's a little overboard.
The key word I heard in that response was she.
Mm-hmm.
Female spy, Cold War.
Yes.
Not many of those, are there?
No, she was the only one in that theater of both, the teams that were CIA and MI6. She was the only woman. And so it was very rare. There were some women working at Langley as analysts or program assistants or whatever. But as far as field agents, there had not been any CIA field agents in that area before. There were women that worked for the Secret Service during World War II, but that was before the CIA was formed. CIA was formed after World War II.
I know there's a lot of supporting activity that Julia Child was a spy at one point in time. Don't know whether it's true or not. I'm just saying. But when you have access to a foreign area and you're a reasonably well-known person, international opera singer, you have access that other people don't have. That kind of opens the door to things that I guess CIA, MI6, and others want to be able to know more about.
Yeah, one thing that I always tell young people that are asking me, like, well, I'm interested in the CIA, how does that work? When it comes to the kind of high profile spies that you just mentioned, like, an opera singer or Julia Child, usually it's always they come to those people. They will approach them and say, look, this is the situation. You're in the perfect place and you have a high profile situation where you can get to heads of state, important business people. They're going to be in your circle of what you encompass. And so therefore, if you could help us out here, we'd really appreciate it. And then, of course, what that person doesn't know, they've already vetted them for who knows, months or years before they approach them. That happens a lot.
But throughout history, I'm sure there's more than a few women spies, if we go all the way back to Babylonian times or whatever, that were probably truly effective because nobody ever expected them to be in that business.
Yes. Yeah. So, a good recruiter for the CIA or the MI6 is always going to find in those situations people that would never be suspected in a million years because they have a very good reason for being there. Caitlin Stewart had a reason. She was selected to be an apprentice at the Vienna State Opera. She had won lots of competitions. So therefore, that wasn't a big jump, why she would be there, right? And they accepted her. That country accepted her. So they're going to have their guard completely down. She could go talk to the prime minister or his wife. She can go talk to the impresario. That would be exactly what an opera singer would do. But the difference is Caitlin Stewart is collecting pertinent information, and she's at that time planting bugs everywhere.
Okay, just for clarity for our audience, Caitlin Stewart is the spy in your book, Mission Thaw.
Yes.
The new one, the new recruit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yes.
just because we just mentioned her name, but we never really associated where she came from, although we kind of interpreted, but let's just, for the sake of clarity. Yeah. Okay, we were talking backstage about, we go back to, in fact, my wife and I attended the first ever play where they actually held the scripts in front of them and went through all the actions. And it was about World War I, but more about the Spanish flu. And they're talking afterwards about, why haven't we learned our lessons when the latest pandemic came through? And of course, technology and everything has changed, but the same thing applies from whether it was World War I, World War II, the Cold War. We seem to learn the same things over and over, but the activities that are there are still ongoing, even in the absence of war. Why don't you take that and kind of run with it for a little bit?
Yes. Some of the main antagonists in Mission Thaw are KGB, which are the secret police of the USSR at the time, and they're living in East Germany. And I just want to point out that Vladimir Putin was a KGB officer at that time in the late 80s in East Germany. Okay, so, you can see the parallels now. Well, now look at the power he has risen to in all the decades. And he is allowing, for instance, what happened to the refugees in Mission Thaw, the same thing is happening to the refugees of Ukraine. So that is a very, very important parallel there. And so, it's almost like no one learns the correct lesson. They just learn how to do it all over again.
I like that. They don't learn the lesson, they learn how to do it. And it's amazing that it doesn't have to apply in international intrigue. That applies in almost every company that we work in.
Yes.
From the military, I go to an exercise, and after the exercise is over, you write up this lessons learned book, and you have books there for each year that exercise was there. Okay, what did they do 5 years ago? Okay, so I go back and I review. Okay, why did they learn the same lesson over and over and over again? Because nobody went back and reviewed everything to see what they were doing. And it's interesting. It's there. It's able to be analyzed and brought back, but for whatever reason, whether it's hubris, egos, opportunities, legal or illegal, it doesn't. People are people, and it's just it's interesting. And I'm just going to use the word that the Chinese use: "May you live in interesting times," as a curse. But when I'm looking at the Cold War, you're looking at the real detailed level on the floor, person to person, and that we have a lot of novels like that. Is your novel? How would you rank your novel? How would you rate your novel as being just a little bit different, other than having a female protagonist as the main character?
I think I like to write about relationship. And so I think, to make a short answer of that, it's the way that I take the time to develop each of the spies in each of the teams that are working together, and their relationships and how that works while you're on a mission. I see bits and parts of that, but I think my book really, really explores just how they rely on each other, and they rely on each other's talents, and they get each other by usually humor, to get through the worst of times. But just how close these people are, and how much they sacrifice of their personal lives and their civil liberties to be a spy. They put everything on hold, and they can't have contact with anyone they love because of the security.
It's interesting to me when I'm thinking of things. I'm reading a book, and you're giving a description of the relationship, or the location, or inside this building, or the cafe outside. You've been there. You've walked down those streets. You've been in those buildings. You have intimate knowledge and detail, because not only that, you live that life at that time surreptitiously on the side. But so you're taking a real personal passion that you have and putting it into a book and saying, this is what really happened.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, I lived in Vienna, where this mainly is set, and then later in the Alps, later in the book. And, so I can tell you what the Mozart Cafe, looks, and what they serve, and, what it smells like, and, who hangs out there, because we're there all the time, not far from the Vienna State Opera. So, yeah, and in the streets, which, she falls down because her fancy Italian high-heeled boots get caught in the cobblestones. Those things are real for me because they really happened, And so I try to, that's one thing that, my favorite author is Willa Cather, and she just always gives you all five senses about a place. And I was trying to do that too. But yeah, I could do it because it's vivid for me because I was there.
I remember the first few times I walked on cobblestone streets over there. And it's kind of neat the first time because it's different. But, a year later,
yeah, you go, wow, wish these were not here. Yeah. I mean, no wonder cobblers, you don't really see that many cobblers in the United States anymore. You see them everywhere in those cities because you're constantly having your soles of your shoes or your heels, reapplied.
Yeah.
It's dangerous.
It is. It's actually, and especially if it's wet or icy, it's a really world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I can remember one time I'm thinking I'm doing pretty well. And the next absolute half second, I'm staring at the ground about that far from my face because all of a sudden I'm on my hands and my body slipped out from underneath me. And I have no idea why my hands caught me that quickly. But anyway, we're getting toward the end of the show here. And I want to make sure you have a chance to tell everybody, how can they reach you? Do you have anything going on? Do you have any signings, any speaking engagements, anything going on that people would be interested in trying to get in touch with you?
I don't have any speaking engagements this year, but next year I'm looking at Thriller Fest and many things. It's taken me a while to get my feet underneath me as an author. So, but what I can tell you is I've been doing many podcasts and many blogs and that kind of thing, and everything that I do can absolutely be found on my website, which is kaysparlingbooks.com. There's so much there. And being a musician, I even have a theme song that you could play that was written by a musical theater composer friend of mine. So all the media, all the editorial reviews, which are very good. There's some illustrations, everything. So kaysparlingbooks.com.
Okay, you have a paperback. Do you have a hardback?
Yes, and I have ebook, of course.
Do you have an audiobook yet?
I do not yet, but that is coming in 2026. I just found out, so I'm excited. Yeah.
When you get the audiobook out, we need to connect back again so we can let the world know it's out there and available.
Thank you so much. I will do that. Yeah.
Kay Sparling Books. That's Kay Sparling, SPARLING Books, BOOKS for our audio audience. So kaysparlingbooks.com. Reach out to her. Wonderful time chatting with you today. Kind of brought back a few memories of the Cold War for me. Not nearly as intense as yours, but different world, different things that we do.
Well, you needed to be there too, and you're the first person that I have spoken to that was over there during the Cold War with me. So, kudos. Thank you for your service.
Well, thank you so very much. And Kay, appreciate your time this morning. Good luck on the continued book tour and everything that's going on now, digitally, virtually. And I do honestly look forward to chatting with you again here in the future because there's just a lot of other things we did not get a chance to go into today.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Red O'Loughlin here. We're getting ready to wrap up the Corner Bookstore on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. In about 24 minutes, I'll be starting a show called The Wise Ones. It's a show where we may be looking at authors, but we're looking at a different aspect. We're looking at the entrepreneurial journey. We're looking at business owners. We're looking at a variety of things. What wisdom has a person acquired over time that they can share with the rest of the world? And that's kind of what we're looking at. What are those special things? Immediately following that, I'm going to be talking on Talking Heads. I'm the only presenter. And I'll be talking today about the vagus nerve and longevity. The vagus nerve is kind of like the superhighway of everything that goes on in the body, from all the organs talking back and forth to the brain. It's the main conduit by which everything we do happens. And there's a lot of things in there that can happen. A lot of easy things to keep it going well, but there's just a lot of other things in there that can disrupt and make the world not so happy anymore. So that being said, we're going to wrap up this version of today's The Corner Bookstore with Kay Sparling, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. And if by chance you can't make the show live, it's always on YouTube on USA Global TV and Radio. Take care, y'all. Bye now.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA Global TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dyes. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.